Sarah Martinez stood in her grandmother's attic on a cold November morning in 1998, surrounded by old cardboard boxes. As a history professor at Boston University, she had studied late 19th century American life for years, but nothing prepared her for what she found in her own family things. Her grandmother Eleanor had died 3 months earlier, and Sarah was sorting through decades of belongings. Most items were ordinary: old clothes, receipts, everyday letters. Then she found a leather portfolio under a stack of quilts. Inside, wrapped in yellowed paper, was a large photograph. It showed 7 people standing formally in front of a brick building, with a sign that read, Harrison Textile Mill, St. 1887. Sarah recognized her great-great-grandfather Thomas Harrison in the center, his wife Catherine beside him, their 4 children, and Thomas's brother Michael. She carried the photo downstairs for better light. The details were sharp for such an old picture, but something caught her eye. Behind the family, partly hidden by the building's corner, stood a man in a dark coat. His face was turned slightly away, almost lost in shadow. She had never noticed him in smaller copies of the photo. Who was he? Why was he in the background of a family portrait? Sarah took a magnifying glass and looked closer. The man's posture was tense. His clothes looked messy compared to the family's formal dress. His eyes, barely visible, seemed to stare straight at the camera with a desperate look. The photographer's stamp on the back said, Whitmore's Photography, Boston, Massachusetts, September 14, 1898. That evening, Sarah spread the photograph on her table with her laptop and notebook. Using university databases, she searched Boston newspapers from September 1898. The city was restless after the Spanish-American War, and there had been violent labor disputes, but nothing linked directly to the Harrisons. After 3 hours, she found a small article in the Boston Herald from September 16th. Police were seeking a fugitive after a warehouse fire. On September 13th, a fire at the Riverside warehouse had killed 3 workers. A man named Daniel Foster was wanted. The description matched the background figure, about 30 years old, dark hair, medium build, last seen in a dark overcoat. The next morning, Sarah went to the Boston Public Library's special collections. The librarian helped her find more records. The fire was not an accident. It looked like arson. Daniel Foster, a warehouse supervisor, had disappeared right after and became the main suspect. Sarah learned he had been respected, worked at the warehouse for 8 years, and had a wife and young daughter. Witnesses said they saw him run from the scene, and police found accelerant where the fire started. Yet something did not make sense. Why would a guilty man risk being photographed the very next day only 3 blocks from the crime scene? Sarah checked her family records and found a ledger belonging to Thomas Harrison. An entry from September 10, 1898, noted a meeting with D. Foster about a warehouse contract, terms discussed, agreement pending inspection. Thomas had met Daniel only 3 days before the fire. Thomas had also saved several newspaper clippings about the fire. At the Massachusetts State Archives, she found the thin police file on the case. Foster was never caught, and the investigation went cold. At the back was a handwritten note from October 1898. An anonymous tip claimed Foster was innocent and urged police to look at the warehouse owner's city contracts. The tip was ignored. Property records showed the warehouse belonged to Charles Whitmore, the same name as the photography studio that took the family portrait. Whitmore was a powerful businessman with city connections and profitable storage contracts. 2 months after the fire, he sold the burned land to the city for more than twice its value so a new police station could be built. He made a large profit. Back in the attic, Sarah found a bundle of letters addressed to Thomas Harrison from Daniel's wife, Elizabeth, written in late 1898 and early 1899. The first letter begged for help and said Daniel was innocent. Later letters grew more detailed and frightened. Elizabeth wrote that Daniel had discovered Whitmore was billing the city for storage space and supplies that did not exist. He had gone to the warehouse late on September 13th to gather proof. The fire was set to destroy the evidence and frame him. Men who were not police had threatened Elizabeth's home. Thomas had mentioned the photograph to her. Daniel had appeared that day hoping to speak with Thomas, but men were watching the mill. He could not approach openly, so he stood in the background hoping Thomas would notice him and understand he was nearby, waiting for a safe moment. Sarah realized Thomas had known Daniel was innocent, but was too afraid of Whitmore's power to speak out. Whitmore had friends in government and had been investigated for money problems before without charges. After the fire, his businesses grew. Daniel simply vanished from records after October 1898. The 1900 census listed Elizabeth Foster as a widow living with her daughter Anna in Cambridge. No death certificate for Daniel could be found. Sarah traced Anna through later records. Anna married in 1920, had 3 children, and died in 1975. Sarah located James Coleman in Newton, Massachusetts, whose grandmother was Anna Foster, when Sarah called and explained. James was quiet for a long time, then said his grandmother had always insisted her father was innocent. They met the next day when James saw the shadowy figure in the photograph. His eyes filled with tears. "That's him," he said. Anna had been only 6 when her father disappeared and grew up under the shame of being an arsonist's daughter. She never married until she was 40 and spent years trying to clear his name with no real evidence. James brought an old envelope his grandmother had left him. Inside were a faded photo of Daniel holding young Anna, a pressed flower, and a notebook page of inventory numbers that did not match, clear proof of false records. Anna's mother had hidden that page in a Bible for decades. James also shared a family story. Daniel and Elizabeth had arranged a signal. If he was alive, he would leave a small chalk cross on the cornerstone of Street, Mary's Church in South Boston, on the 15th of each month. The mark appeared from October 1898 through March 1899, then stopped. Elizabeth believed he might have gone west, perhaps to California. A rumor said she later received a package from San Francisco containing money and a pressed California poppy, but no letter. Sarah searched California records. Under his real name she found nothing, which made sense if he used an alias. She remembered Elizabeth's letters mentioned Daniel's skill in judging textile quality. In San Francisco business directories from 1900 to 1900, she Foster and Sons Textile Inspection Services, established 1900. A genealogist confirmed that a man named David Foster had started a successful textile inspection business, married, had 2 sons, and died in 1934 at age 66. A 1910 photograph of him matched the man in the 1898 portrait. David Foster's 1934 will contained a sealed letter for any surviving Foster family in Boston. After proving their connection, Sarah and James received it. Written in 1933 when Daniel knew he was dying, the letter confirmed everything. He had uncovered Whitmore's fraud. Whitmore set the fire to destroy evidence and framed him. 3 workers died. Daniel fled to Thomas Harrison for help, but the mill was watched, so he used the photograph as a silent signal. Thomas secretly gave him money and helped him leave for the West under a new name, but was too afraid to speak publicly. Daniel built a new life in California, sent money to Elizabeth when he could, and hoped she and Anna would join him. Elizabeth died of influenza in 1904 before they could reunite. He followed Anna's life from afar and wished only that the truth would one day be known. With the letters, photographs, inventory page, and Daniel's own words, Sarah and James took the evidence to the Massachusetts Historical Society and the Boston Police. In November 1999, a formal hearing reviewed the case. Historians confirmed the documents. In March 2000, the Boston Police officially cleared Daniel Foster's name, stating he had been innocent and framed. Sarah arranged a memorial marker at Street, Mary's Church, near the cornerstone where Daniel had left his signals. The inscription read, "In memory of Daniel Foster, 1868 to 1934, and Elizabeth Foster, 1870 to 1904. Separated by injustice, united in truth." At the dedication, James placed flowers, tears on his face. "My grandmother would be so happy, she never stopped believing." Sarah squeezed his hand. She and Elizabeth kept the story alive long enough for us to find the truth. A century of silence was broken. A man's name was restored, all because one historian looked closely at an old family photograph and wondered about the figure standing in the shadows.